what do you do to keep your voice in such good nick and stuff? I said, I have pretty much done everything I can to have killed myself in the last 50 years. We've dabbled with lots of different styles over the years. You know, we've done kind of like some strange stuff. But essentially, at the heart of the band, there is a kind of like, for me, a Cure sound. I was horrified when I ended up as the singer. And even when we did our first shows, I sang one song at our first show, and I sang the wrong song. I think if I'd just pursued it, during that period, I think the band would have ended very, very shortly afterwards.
So, I mean, I usually share on Twitter my favourite album of the year, and nobody asks me to do it. And I ask everyone what theirs was. And so it counts as a fully accountable survey, and you'd be glad to know that most people have said Songs of a Lost World is the best album of 2024.
I am actually struggling a little bit to respond to the amount of love that the band and the album's getting. It's we're kind of used to it at a lower level. I mean, when we play shows, you know, stuff like there's an engagement with the audience, and it's always really, you know, live shows are always really, really good. But this is kind of different, you know. It's these people who are suddenly saying, you know, this is such a great thing, and I'm just not used to it. If I'm honest, I'm not really used to, you know, I know people around me are very bad at taking compliments, and I sometimes lose my temper. I'm like, just take the compliment, you know? And I'm finding myself in that awkward position where I find it very difficult to take the compliment, because I'm thinking, like, you know, I remember actually listening to the mastered version at home for the first time, and I'm thinking, like, wow, this is exactly what I wanted. Yeah. But now I'm starting to think, is it really that good? It's like it's all doubts are creeping in. So it's probably good that I'm moving on to something else quick. Because but yeah, it certainly. I mean, it's not the reason it was created, but it's very gratifying to find that you know, that it's touching people in such a way. It's really good.
Did you enjoy Rockfield?
I loved Rockfield. Yeah,
good.
I was saying earlier, it's probably my second favourite time in the studio. I think like nothing could ever beat. We were in a place called Miraval in France in the 80s doing the Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me album, and it had its own vineyard. They said you can have free wine if you come and work here, because at the time we were very popular in France. And we said, oh, really? And they rescinded the offer after a week. They said, like, we can't possibly keep giving you this amount of free wine. So yeah, that was a good month. But Rockfield, in a different way, we created a very sort of very English. Although it's in Wales, because it was kind of we turned it into our world. It was And I was saying earlier, we pushed everything. We tried to recreate 1969 in the studio, so it was almost like a weird time capsule. Yeah. So leaving there was actually a wrench, walking back into, and gave me the idea of the Songs of a Lost World, because I thought it's like we had almost literally created our own world, you know. For a month we just lived and I had no contact with the outside world. A real kind of like shock returning home. Quite horrible, actually.
Did you was it the Coach House or the Quadrangle or bits of both? Or?
Us being us, we booked it all.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to, you know, anyone to kind of like wander in unannounced. So for the first 3 weeks, we just had we block booked the whole thing. But we didn't do it. We were playing live shows immediately afterwards, because it was early 2019, and we were doing all the festivals, and so we had our live set up in the other studio, and the crew were in that part. So we used to finish recording, then go and rehearse for a couple of hours, or vice versa. So we were actually working two different projects at the same time. So we made use of the whole studio.
I love that.
That's my reasoning.
And on the sleeve notes, I thought it was really beautiful that you just said all those who've been with us through the last 15 years. And I just thought that was like, it just said so much.
Yeah, I mean, when we've been going around the world and playing music to people, there's a genuine sense of community has built up, particularly over the last 15 years. It's always been there with us. I think like the band's represented something quite powerful to people. It attracts, I didn't say a certain type of person, but I think Cure fans do. There's something about Cure fans, which, I mean, every band says we've got the best fans, but I mean, Cure fans, there's something about them, you know. That it's like, and it's a real pleasure to play music in a room with people who are Cure fans. It's you know, we could talk about other bands and they've got like great fans, but it's kind of different. I mean, I've been to lots of shows, and so I know what it's like to see other bands. There's a genuine sense of community, and of course it happens with other bands as well. But when you're part of it, you kind of, and it develops and develops, and people grow up with you. And particularly after this amount of time, we've still retained a lot of people who were there really, really early on. I mean, I know most of them by name, but we've also attracted like an enormous audience of younger people. Yeah. And it's when you get in a room with everyone and you start playing music, it's just like it kind of makes sense. So I suppose the when it's like to do with an album, because it's been so long since we've had anything new, it's slightly different. It's slightly difficult to, So I was really acknowledging everyone that's kind of like experienced everything with us, in the time it's taken from the last album to this one, because I think that it's the reason why we've kept going, really. I mean, I've wanted to do it, but I wouldn't be able to do it if people didn't want us to do it. So essentially, they're the reason why we're still going.
I saw you at the Troxy, and it's incredible. The sound. Anyone would be forgiven thinking that you did the whole record live from start to finish, because I mean, the sound coming back it's just like the record.
Cool. I watched it 2 nights ago for the first time.
Yeah.
I watched the stream.
Yeah.
I'm glad the album doesn't sound like that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, there's some great bits in it.
Yeah.
But it's, it's different. I think that there's a certain amount of tension on stage which works in some parts, and in other parts it's like, we're kind of teetering on the edge of thinking, I can see me trying, the songs that we've played prior to that show, there were 5 on the album that we've been playing over the last couple of years, and those songs are pretty much they just, I know they're going to work. Everyone on stage knows they're going to work. Although the first song was a disaster because Simon was wearing some kind of slinky jacket that he'd been given.
Oh, he was kneeling down,
and his bass strap kept slipping.
Got you, yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't laugh, but I didn't know what was going on because I was just about to start singing, and I realised that he was like on his knees behind me, and I thought, I could see Reeves kind of like thinking,
giving him a helping hand.
I like turn around and say, is everything okay? So I was kind of singing it, and it distracted me. It took me a while to get back into what we were doing, and it's really weird because there was all part of my brain was thinking like, what's happening? Because but from that point on, the band sort of grew into the songs. But once we hit War Song, which is the first song that we'd never played before in front of people, suddenly everything felt different on stage. It was not in a good way. There was a real tension there, and it was like, although we'd rehearse it, thinking like, but suddenly here we are, here's people, lights are on, and we're playing the song. And there was a real, it was different parts of the band react to that in different ways, and it's not I can never predict how, so I felt and watching it back I can kind of see it. I think I'm really into it, but I think the band as a band is kind of much more concerned about getting it right.
Do you think that's because it's been filmed and recorded?
Yeah, I didn't tell him it was being filmed or streamed until the week before.
Good tactic.
Just during rehearsals, I kind of just dropped it in. It was a global live stream, and there was this horrible silence. Why would you do that? So, it worked out that the tension was released, and particularly in the last song, an End Song, which is a great performance of End Song. It's like it really kind of like it makes sense of the whole set for me. There was a real sense of we got through it, rather than when we do a great show, and you kind of take the crowd with you, and you don't ever think, was it a great show? You just like, you've just been part of something which you've really enjoyed. And that's the side of it which was different. It was a performance in a way that Cure shows aren't really a performance. We're not really aware. And all the festivals that we do, I mean, most of them are streamed, but it's not the fact that there's cameras there or anything. It's just that we were playing songs we'd never played before, and we were kind of doing something for a very specific reason. And it was it's a small venue for us. I mean, that's not meant to sound funny, but I mean, it's much harder to play to people that close. I've always found that. I mean, I was so happy when we started to get successful. I could because I got such terrible eyesight that when I'm far enough away, I just see like an amorphous mass of people, and I feel much more comfortable. If I catch someone's eye when I'm in a smaller show, it's like, It's the end, you know. I keep thinking, oh, that's what I start thinking what they're thinking. I start seeing myself through their eyes. I think, oh God, you know, it's like it all starts to crumble. But having said that, the trade-off is that it's harder work creating an environment, you know, like a real sort of like sense of an environment in a bigger venue. It becomes more about the staging and stuff, you know. Whereas the Troxy show was, it was, you know, for us it was like it was an intimate show. You could kind of feel the crowd. It was like it was good, but there was an expectation there, and I think that's the other thing. There really isn't. People come to a Cure show, they kind of already know. They kind of know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
It was, you know, I don't see much point in we were going to like spring too many surprises. We play songs that we haven't played before. We're not really going to just break, you know, have a backing singers or dancers and stuff. So people will kind of like know what they're going to get, and there's more to a, you know, to a Cure show than just like what we're doing on stage. I think the Troxy show was more about us. You know, this is our new songs. It was made a lot easier because the response to the album had been so great.
So great, yeah.
You know, the reviews have been, you know, I mean, you can imagine if the album had been panned, it would have been a lot harder going on stage and proving that it wasn't. It would have been a different show. As it was, there was an expectation, like, you know, every review is like, this is a wonderful piece of work. Like, and we're thinking, really? You know, we're going to go on and like, it's all going to go horribly wrong. I'm going to forget all the words and like, but yeah, it was good. It was a good night, actually. I'm glad we did it.
It's funny to have those kind of thoughts running through your mind.
I know that I'm not. Yeah, I never. If it's a great show, I never think about it. That's when I know, because if I ever catch myself thinking about anything on stage, I know that I'm not there.
Yeah,
in a weird way. It's like when you're singing, and you know, it's like you're just. I mean, the day I have to read the words is that I won't ever reach that day because I'll have given up. I'm singing the songs that I've written, and they mean something to me, and that's the whole point of singing. Yeah. It's like I'm engaged with the song, you know, I mean, and I'm trying to present it, and I'm engaging with the audience. So when things start to go wrong, and because we haven't been on stage for a long time, you know, a year, we're really in front of people. We've done a couple of BBC sessions, it's not really the same thing. What used to, you know, what after a few dates becomes just like you just do things without even, you know, you click pedals and you don't have to look at where you are on the guitar and stuff, all that kind of thing. They're little details. Like when I was watching the stream back, I'm thinking, I'm looking all the time, you know, which I don't normally do. I'm checking, like, am I on the 5th fret? You know, is my hand waiting to go?
Was that
like,
only in the very early beginnings of the live stream, though?
Yeah, just that first hour. Yeah. But I suppose that the trade-off is that the intensity that's there on stage, with everyone trying, you know, really, really hard not to get it wrong, you know, as opposed to trying to get it right. I mean, we all know what it's supposed to be. So it's more a case of like, can you know, not just remember what you're playing, but remember how we did, you know, the last couple of days in rehearsal, how did we get to that point where this song became something more than just us playing the chords, you know. So a song like War Song, you just don't, you know, it's all to do with the noise that you're making. And in rehearsal, that was the first time, the night before, we had a sound check at Troxy, and it was the first time we really made a noise, you know, with that song. Of like everyone turned up, you know, and kind of wailed away. And suddenly I thought, like, this is great, you know. It's like in rehearsal, it just sounds like a series of guitar chords. But suddenly on the album, you've got this sort of like dense kind of like build of just like it's sort of earth shaking kind of. Like my Mogwai moment. And that's what I was, you know, I was actually thinking, oh God, you know, Stuart's in the audience. Like, Kevin Shields is in the audience. Like, so normally I'm saying to Reeves, like, turn down, you know, and I said, you turn up.
Where did you first meet Reeves?
We're never sure actually about this, because Reeves thinks that he met me before. I'm pretty sure, like, you know, but he was in an alternate universe for some of the 90s. I sang at Bowie's birthday party in New York, and at the show that he did. Yeah. And I met Reeves there. Reeves sort of took me under his wing. We just got on straight away. We have a very similar kind of sense of humour. And he sort of we did a rehearsal. So they booked Madison Square Garden for like, I think 3 days or something. We did a rehearsal, and then I went out with him, and I don't remember anything about the next sort of 16 hours. I just remember like going back to stage and Bowie and his band like just looking at us like and I was wearing the same. I mean, I'm always wearing the same clothes, but I mean, I really looked like I was wearing the clothes that I've been wearing the day before, and so yeah, we bonded straight away, and we did a single called Wrong Number with him after that. And then we just stayed in touch really, and around when the band, the 4-piece band sort of imploded in 2009, and then around 2011 I wanted to get going again, and me and Simon and Jason, we did some things we rehearsed as a 3-piece. We were going to do Bestival as a 3-piece, and then thankfully, like, sense prevailed, and I realised that we couldn't really play very much as a 3-piece. It's all, apart from the early stuff. So Roger came back in, and then that worked really well. But I missed having that guitarist there who could just kind of take some of the load off, so I could go back to singing again. So Reeves was just the obvious choice. He was just he's really, he's brilliant.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Which helps. He's like, he's the best guitarist I've ever encountered, and he's got a very dry sense of humour.
Yeah,
and he's got a lot of stories.
Yeah,
in fact, it's hard to shut him up sometimes.
I got lost with him a couple of times when I lived in LA. We were out there at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, but he spent a lot of time. Obviously with Bowie, and Bowie had kind of the keys to the kingdom pretty much wherever he went, so Reeves is kind of like there as well. And so there are some kind of funny, unrepeatable stories. Yeah.
So, Alone, first track, the first one that everyone heard. Do you think it's catchy?
It would be low down on a list of adjectives if I was describing the song to someone. Okay. If you hear it enough times, anything's catchy, isn't it? Like a beep is catchy. I don't think it was written. I don't think any of the songs were written actually. The one review that I read, because I still read reviews, and it's really stupid, but I sort of like I'm interested in how people perceive it, I suppose. And I think through the medium of reviews, that's how other people are going to perceive it until they hear it themselves. And so I was thinking, so that's why I was thinking, blind, we were getting 5-star reviews. We've never ever had 5-star reviews. So I started to read them to see what do they like about this that they haven't liked about anything else we've done. But one of them, I remember, so it's always human nature. So the one bad thing, it's like gone are the pop hits of like the 80s. I was thinking because that would sound good, wouldn't it? Like over Alone. I mean, it's like a completely different thing. So, but it did make me think about you do to some degree sacrifice that kind of earwormy sort of stuff when you're doing emotional and big stuff, because it gets in the way. So it's almost not catchy because you don't want it to be too catchy, because it isn't really that kind of music. It's more, it's like asking this is very pretentious, but it's like asking if a really great piece of orchestral music is catchy. I mean, if you listen to it enough, all joking aside, you know how the next bit is. When I was younger, I used to listen to stuff on repeat, like on a Walkman. I used to have like the same 6 cassettes for a 3-week tour and just listen to them endlessly. So I knew the tone of the hiss at the beginning and end of the cassette. So everything on those, like it was Astral Weeks. I know every single note on it, but also there was a Gregorian chants cassette, and I knew. I mean, I didn't know what they meant because it's Latin and I don't have the benefit of that kind of education. But I used to sing along, So to me, it was incredibly catchy. And a lot of people would and forgetting I had earphones, so I'd be sitting there and I'd be singing Gregorian chants. Like a lot of people think, he's so weird, But I actually thought it's like very restful. Like I was engaged with it. But I'm not sure that Alone's catchy, but I think that there is certainly there's melody runs through everything The Cure does. There are very few songs that we've done which rely entirely just on kind of like noise, if you like. But I love noise music, which is weird. But I think other people do it far better than I do. So I think what we do best is that is a kind of like a gentle melody and harmonies and that kind of interweaving stuff. And I think in Alone, when it all comes together like it does in Alone, I think then it becomes catchy, kind of catchy. Catchy's not really the right word, but I mean it's catchy enough.
The reason I said that is because I was in Iceland when I bought the record, and I'd heard Alone a couple of times, and Iceland has a lot of spas, right? And I was just in a spa, and it is quite a posh spa. And it was like ambient music, and I could sing the melody to Alone over this ambient music, and I thought that is the sign of, a really great song. Yeah, in my head at that time, that's what I thought. I thought if I ever get to interview Robert Smith, I'm going to mention that.
Yeah, you could also say that it's like it means it's so incredibly bland that you could like sing it over background music. It's like
that's not.
No, I know
what
you mean. I take it in the spirit that you mean.
Yeah.
I'm just. It's hard to get past visualising you in a nice atmosphere. To be honest, to answer the question properly. If there's a question there, I don't know. I've forgotten.
Okay.
Do you test all new releases?
No,
like,
I mean, for a start, I've only been to Iceland twice. I've only been to Iceland twice, and it was. I wanted to go into a record shop and buy the record, and it's something that I do, and I had it, and but I'd heard Alone as the lead track, and it just I just couldn't stop singing it in Iceland, so maybe it has some sort of connection.
Yeah, it worked because we started every show from 2022 right the way through to the end of 2023.
Yeah.
It was 90 plus shows. Every show we opened with Alone and we ended with End Song. But that's kind of what you do if you've got when you have a new album out. We've always done that. Or we always open the show with the lead track from the album. What was weird was that the album wasn't out.
Yeah.
Through that entire period. So we were actually we're essentially just like new songs.
But did you have the whole album at this point?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I didn't have, I hadn't sung a convincing version of War Song, actually, was the one I struggled with. I had like different words and it just didn't sound right, but I wanted it to be on the album. I was kind of changing things all the time, all the way through the 2022 tour, actually. We were doing things in soundcheck and I was trying to figure out if we had the right running order and stuff, and I didn't really settle on it until this year, so we were still kind of fluid when we were doing it, and we would drop songs in. We played a lot of songs that didn't make it onto this album. We played which will probably be on the next one because they were recorded at the same time, but I knew that Alone was, it worked just straight away. It was, but live I was able to walk around and kind of like, and it was really nice. I've never had Plain Song, which is the opening track, and Disintegration, which we did at Troxy in the second set. It's the same kind of thing. It used to allow me to kind of settle into the to take it all in and then to start, and it's almost like a preamble kind of thing. So with Alone, I wanted that build into the vocal, which became sort of like almost thematic through the album, unintentionally really. But I wanted the music to breathe before I started singing. And a lot of the initial response from people that I was playing it to, it's like, is it an instrumental? Because it would be, like 6 minutes and you still haven't sung. It's like, can't you sing a bit earlier? And I'm like, well, why? It's a 10-minute song. And why do I have to sing? So it's and I think that's been informed by my love of bands like Mogwai and God is an Astronaut, and like the bands that are just like are essentially instrumental bands, just like who don't need vocals. So I think, I need to justify why I'm singing over the top of this, because my intention is really for us to create a great piece of music that fits my words. That's always the goal. And sometimes we pull it off, not always, but when we do, it's like my happiest moment. I think that this is it. And so Alone is one of those. The words just fit with the music, and I think maybe that's it. So in that way, it's catchy because I suppose because the vocal melody is kind of carrying the song, because there aren't any other strong melodies in the song, and that's true of like most of them on the album, which is why I think the review said like, I've lost the art of writing, but I haven't.
You haven't.
So come on.
It's a beautiful opening to And Nothing Is Forever. I mean, I think you mentioned orchestration a minute ago or something along those lines. I mean, it's emotional and beautiful, unhurried. And yeah, I mean, I wrote here in my notes, I can't think of anything except maybe something classical that affected me so deeply.
That's very nice.
Yeah, and I'm not even a reviewer.
Yeah, when we did that one in the studio, because obviously I was playing it as, and I was going to get in a string quartet to play that, and also there's another one that isn't on the album.
Yeah.
And in the end, and I never kind of, I could never, because it's not supposed to sound like real strings, but it sort of does, because samples are so good nowadays. But you kind of know it isn't.
Yeah.
And I actually liked the idea that so in there is an Emulator 2 string sample.
Listening to the record at the Troxy, it was just like really evident, like, me and my mate were just sitting there going, oh, the choice of notes. Like, you know, you're just playing along, and then the choice of notes are just like so just interesting. I mean, you know, it sounds such a lame thing to say, but everything just seems so considered, but like, you know, so relaxed and so, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying. But, you know, I like to write songs, and I like to always make the third chord or something like that, not what you would expect after hearing the first and the second one.
Yeah.
Just for my own interest, and also just to see where, you know, see what opens up after that. And I thought that the choice of notes in each song were just unexpected.
The new songs,
yeah, the first set.
I think there's after, you know, this length of time, I'm acutely aware of not repeating myself, and despite that, I repeat myself.
Yeah.
But there are only a certain number of subjects which motivate me to write words, and there's only a certain. Although we've dabbled with lots of different styles over the years, you know, we've done kind of like some strange stuff. But essentially, at the heart of the band, there is a kind of like, for me, a pure sound, and a lot of it is. I actually think it's quite predictable. It's just the way you interpret that predictability. I personally, if I'm awaiting the third chord and I know what I want and it doesn't happen, I think I'm kind of like, don't be so clever. I mean, that's like prog rock. You know, you're like, come on. It's much better to satisfy the customer in that sense. But it's a way of finding different ways of saying the same thing.
Right.
I've kind of like, and that's actually like part of the struggle with getting anything completed for me, because I think I've done that before and I've done it better, and I don't know. And what's the point in doing it again? You know, so. It reminds me of a conversation when Reeves joined the band, like provisionally in 2012, and then just stayed. We would have long discussions, particularly on the 2016 tour. It was the first time I spent a long period of time with him, you know, on a tour bus, and we talked about pretty much everything. But part of the conversation was always because his background is completely different musically, and where he grew up, and the music he listens to, and how he learnt to play guitar and everything else. Utterly different to you know, and he was really intrigued by how I play guitar, because he didn't figure out, like, you know, how did I play guitar? Like, I learned piano, and then I learned classical guitar, and I never really kind of was shown how to play guitar. I kind of learned myself, but I already knew how to read music, and so I was kind of like, I was educated to the point I almost unlearned everything in order to play punk music, because that's what I started playing. Although I learnt Jimi Hendrix songs and stuff, and so I learnt very strange fingerings, and then I listened to Nick Drake. My brother used to say to me, "You're never going to play that. You have to detune the guitar." I was like, "What?" You know, I can actually remember the moment when I realised that I didn't have to stay in normal tuning, and I detuned the guitar and started playing, thinking, "Oh my god!" And then suddenly, like, you're hitting Neil Young chords and things. It's like, so this whole world opens up, and you think, "Oh, these are essentially the same chords, but they sound completely different." I think that's what informed me all the way through, and still does. There's that sense of like interplay between essentially the same 13 notes, if you like. But for Reeves, he comes at it in a, you know, he went to music college, and it's a very much more cerebral attitude he has, and it's like, and also he's able to play anything he can think of, and I can't. I can think of lots and lots of things I can't play. In fact, most of what I think of I can't play. So it's. I think I approach what we do as someone who's writing words and that are going to be sung along with a piece of music. So it's like the whole thing. Whereas, I don't think of myself as a guitarist or as a singer or as a songwriter. I'm kind of like, I'm in a band, and I'm the primary songwriter in the band, and I'm going to end up singing the songs. So, if something's a bit odd and I enjoy it, I don't second guess whether other people will like it. That's the key to it, I think.
Yeah.
So if it's predictable, but I think it's good, it stays. But if it's predictable and it's predictable, and it isn't that good, it doesn't stay. You know, it doesn't get a look in. So I think it benefits me having other people in the band through the years who always come along with something slightly left field. Yeah. And then I have to write words to it, because I've always liked to, you know, like Simon always comes up with something that's really like hooky and catchy, and that's usually the single, you know, in the past. And Roger will come up with something that's a bit more sort of like jazzy, or something a bit more sort of like, you know, the the timing's a bit weird. And Jason will do the same. Can't we do something in 7/8? And everyone's like, what? We don't want to spend 6 minutes playing 7/8. It's like you have to think too much.
It's
so all
hard,
these things feed in, but essentially the heart of it is the idea that the songs are really what the band has always been about. And I think that there's no reason to be unpredictable unless it benefits the song.
I mean, people have said that the record is dark, and I think you've said it's depressing, but I think it's very uplifting.
I think I said that about a version of the album which isn't this version of the album.
Okay.
I think it's when I was compiling the album that I left off. The most disturbing and depressing song isn't on the album.
Okay.
Because it was too much. And I think that's what I played what I thought was the running order of the album, which was 12 songs. And I think I was referring to that. And I played it to Mary first, to see her gauge her reaction. She was like, you're insane. There's no one who's going to be able to listen to that again. Listen to it once and that's it. Because it's too much. It's too relentless. And it had no light on it at all. So I'm glad she said that, because it made me then think, I'd actually got too far down this road of thinking I want to make the bleakest, the most depressing. And I thought, why do I want to do that? It's like going back to the Disintegration album, which is always held up as this is the album that defines the band. I thought, well, that's got like Lullaby on it and Love Song, Fascination Street. It isn't really a doom and gloom album. It's actually got like hits on it. I thought I'm not compromising the album by putting like upbeat music on it just so that it isn't difficult. But I also realised that a couple of the songs, it was too long and it was too much. And I figured, why don't I go back to try and fit it onto a single vinyl? And that then became my sort of like starting point. And I redid the whole thing. I knew the beginning song, knew the end song, and then I started and Fragile Thing at that point fell onto the album, because suddenly it seemed like a pop song compared to everything else in my dismal state at the time. But that's what I was referring to. I don't think the album is depressing, actually. I think it's emotional, but I don't think it's depressing. It's depressing personally for me because the themes on it are essentially about me dying. So, I mean, it's ultimately, it is quite depressing, but it's more about enjoying what time you have. I mean, it's the value of time, I think, is at the heart of the album. It's not so much like a doom and gloom, woe is me. It's more like I'm much more aware that and it's not just me. It happens to everyone. You unless you're insane, you become more aware of like how you're spending your time. Time becomes much more valuable the less you have of it.
Nothing you can do but sing, "This love is a fragile thing. This love is my everything." Yeah,
it's a bit of a dig at myself. That one. No, I mean, it's something I've been rightly accused of as well. It's just that because there is a certain glibness to that. When I've kind of played up to that sort of romantic persona in the past, I do sometimes slightly tongue in cheek. Other times I'm seduced by it. Yeah. Not for a long time, but when I was younger, it was that idea that So yeah, it was kind of harking back to that. It was just me kind of like having a bit of a dig at myself, and that there's a certain dishonesty of youth. You're not really aware of it, but you're kind of like romanticising things, and you kind of know you're doing it, but it doesn't seem to matter. But when you get older, it matters more. And so I'm thinking like these things, the things that I value, I don't think I valued them enough when I was younger, and it doesn't bother me because there's nothing I can do about it. But I never have regrets because it's a waste of time. But there is very little in my life that I've regretted, thankfully. But there is always that sense that maybe if it's just human nature, and I think I was just kind of going back and thinking like probably could have done better in certain ways, and that song alludes to the fact that I haven't always like lived up to my own expectations.
Did you look back at like earlier Cure stuff before going into this record? I mean, do you ever? I mean, or you?
Only when I'm doing the remasters and So we started those in 2004. What am I talking about? 2004 we did it. We did Three Imaginary Boys. I finished in 2010 with Disintegration. Then it all kind of slowed down because we started playing, and I kind of lost interest a little bit in the catalogue. I was doing it really, if I'm honest, I was doing it because they sounded awful. They were mastered in such a terrible way for CD. The early albums, they never sounded right. And so I liked the opportunity that I was given to kind of make them sound better and put some of the stuff back in with them that I liked. Some of the live stuff and the demos and stuff. But it was also just a way to re-engage with the past in a more positive way, rather than just like sitting and moping and listening to the glory is. It was better for me to kind of like address it and think like that, And so I got a good idea over a period of time as to some things I'm really, really proud of, and some things I think are really, really good. But there's a fair bit that I think, but we got away with it, I think, because we were well intentioned and we were young, and it kind of worked. And there was always another album coming around the corner. So, but yeah, there's enough good stuff on there for me to feel like I can see why we're still going. And also there's enough great stuff over a sort of a 30-year period for me to think if we are going to do something new, it has to be really great. There's no point, we've got all these songs. Why would I want to bring out a bunch of songs that aren't as good? So. Unless I've got something to say, and that's why it took such a long time. And apart from anything else, I just didn't feel the urge to make an album.
Right.
And that, to me, it's crucial. It's like we could have made an album every couple of years, all the way through, since the last one. But what would be the point? So I suppose my idea of making albums has always been like that they need to be driven by this sort of like this urge to create. They're not really there because you're in a band. You're in a band because that's what you need to do. It's like for too many people, it's the other way around. You kind of like you come up with a couple of albums, then you're in a band. It's like, what do we do now? You've got to make another album. I mean, we did that. If I'm honest, I think probably around the time of the Top, the band, it was just like 1984.
That's the first time I saw you.
It just kind of everything fell apart, but because I got involved in all other different projects, I didn't feel like that it mattered, and in a way that saved the band at that point. Time had left, and it was just me left with Lowell and I went off and I joined the Banshees for a year or so, and when I came back to the Cure, I kind of think like I sort of missed this, and so I picked it up again, and I think if I'd just pursued it. During that period, I think the band would have ended very, very shortly afterwards, because I think I would have kind of thought like the heart's gone out of it. Whereas I kind of went away and I got rid of all this like, extraneous stuff that was like that I was infected with, and then I came back and I picked up where I'd left off. So
War Song, harmonium at the beginning.
Yeah.
Love a harmonium.
That was a nod to Disintegration. There's a song on Disintegration called Untitled.
Yeah, the last track. Yeah,
similar kind of vibe, really, and. So War Song, it didn't have a harmonium until this year. It was actually based around a guitar motif, which isn't on the finished song.
Right.
So it's kind of that song's mutated through various iterations, and I wanted it to sound Scottish. Actually, I wanted it to sound like an army coming over, like marching over, like that sort of like a kind of cinematic sort of thing. And then the problem with the harmonium is there's always a small part of me that thinks I have a Cutler.
Yeah.
Which sort of undermines any sort of like grandeur that like. So once I got past that, I thought it's nice. There is something about I've got a harmonium at home, and it's my favourite instrument. It's always been my favourite instrument. There's always been a harmonium in our house, like when I was growing up, and it just like pedaling and just holding down, just like I used to sit there for hours, just like that's My mum would say, "Why don't Actually, it was my dad who said, "Why don't you learn to play something?"
And then the bass is like ferocious and affected, and who's doing this? It's like a Hendrixy kind of thing. Is that you or is that Reeves?
That's Reeves.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I could pretend that's me, but I wouldn't get away with it for long.
Well, you could pretend for a minute.
Yeah. No, I mean that's letting Reeves off the leash on a couple of these songs. Is that actually it adds a dimension to the band, which is it's an unexpected part, and that's probably what isn't there on some of the other albums. When Paul was playing, and Paul was a great guitarist, but I wouldn't really let him do what he wanted to for a long, long time, because it was at odds with what we did.
Yeah, because he was in very early.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
in and out of the band for over a period of like 20 odd years. But because when we started out, Paul was in before we actually changed our name to The Cure. Paul was in the band, and was like the local lead guitar hero kind of thing, and it didn't really work.
Yeah,
and also punk was against all that kind of thing, and I thought unless there's a reason for it, like please don't play a guitar solo. I think Reeves has spent so much of his career playing, particularly with Bowie, kind of stepping back, metaphorically. When Bowie opens his mouth, you're not really going to start playing lead guitar. You're not going to last very long if you do. And so it's kind of inbuilt with Reeves. And like he looks at me, and we've developed an understanding, particularly on stage. Like if I wanted to go a bit more, go for it, I'm just like, there's a kind of go for it look, and he's like and he goes for it. But he understands that the band isn't about that. It's not. He's got his own kind of experimental trio where he's able to do that. He understands that the song is, like I said earlier, the song is the key, and so. On War Song, I just wanted him to kind of go a bit sort of Hendrixy and stuff. He doesn't like it when I say things like that. He's always like, because he's very, very aware of being his own. He has developed his own style. But the problem is that what people would say is Reeves' style. I think up until he's been in the Cure for quite a long time. Whereas I think I've beaten it out of him.
Right.
There's constant vibrato in, and they say, don't stop doing that, Which is a bit silly because that's kind of what he was known for. But he's an experimental guitarist at heart. He's much more about sounds than melody and stuff. Although he can play absolutely anything, left to his own devices, he just makes noise. If he's on his own in the rehearsal room, you can hear like squealing and shrieking. It's Reeves like testing out like a much needed new pedal because he's only got about 48 on his board. So.
Wow!
How dare I say things against Reeves? This is outrageous.
Him and Kevin with their pedals.
Yeah, because I'm there with my 6 Boss pedals that have been there for like 30 years. Can I interest you in this pedal? You say, no, it's okay.
So that's the end of side 1. Was it always going to be the end of side 1?
Yes, it was. War Song, yeah. The War Song was actually the trickiest song to finish of all of them because I wanted it to be... I wanted to sort of be commenting on the parlous state of the world, but at the same time, the intention of the song was it was written about a relationship that I had, which was kind of soured horribly, and then was okay again, and then it soured again, and I thought this is you never really know why. Yeah. It kind of used to drive me a bit crazy, and I just see it around. I see it with people around me as well, and I think you can kind of see it when it's happened to other people, but you can never understand when it happens to you. So it was that. But then thankfully I kind of sort of moved it out into the world a little bit, and it was just more. It's more about particularly the male desire just to fight. It just I'm now old enough. You've kind of seen it all before, and it's so tragic. The sort of repeating history, all the same mistakes by the same people, just with different names. It's really wearying. And also quite worrying at times.
Yeah. So, drone, no drone. I think when I heard it, and I was, and you just saying before that, well, you didn't say that you repeat yourself, but along those lines,
I did.
You did. Okay, I knew you did.
I did.
Yeah. But would I kind of thought of Head on the Door with this song?
Really?
Yeah. Side 2 specifically. That's not meant to be.
No, I think it's kind of like Fascination Street in my mind.
Oh right. Okay.
It sort of occupies the same place in the album, if you like. It just not musically, but it has like an energy to it. It's got a distorted bass line. It's kind of a bit relentless. It suddenly lifts everything up, and I think that's what I was saying earlier about my original running order didn't have that song in it either. It hadn't, because I thought it was much too poppy.
I was maybe thinking
You're thinking of the song that goes down, 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 da 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 da.
Maybe, yeah. Is that sinking? Is it? Or no, Screw.
Screw.
Yeah. Maybe that, but I mean, I don't know. It's just a vibe.
Yeah. Well, same bass player, isn't it?
Same bass player.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, it was trying to get some of what you see when Simon's playing on stage, the energy that he's got, and that
it's
sort
amazing.
of like relentless sort of like. I wanted to get a song on the album that has that, and that's the song. Drone's the song that's got that kind of like relentlessness to it, which is just there, from beginning to end. It was the hardest song to mix of all the songs on the album, to get it actually to sound like it's a real delicate balance for it not to sound like rock.
Yeah,
with a capital R.
Yeah.
It was but that was good fun actually doing that live for the first time. I enjoyed that really much more than I thought it would. The War Song was more difficult, funny enough, even though it's a much simpler song. Much more difficult to step up to the mic and sing it properly.
Okay.
But it's probably the best vocal that I did at Troxy. I think it's the best performance. And the third song, All I Ever Am, which we'll get to, which turned out to be the hardest one to pull off live for a number of reasons. It's like technically much harder than the others and rhythmically more difficult, and far too many notes for me to remember.
I Can Never Say Goodbye.
That's the most difficult song to perform for me, and it was the most difficult song for me to sing, actually, just to record the vocals. So I did all the vocals at home for the first time ever. I sang everything in the studio, but I ended up doing everything again at home. And it took me ages to get that vocal right, because my brother died, and when I got home, I wrote that piece of music. That was my response to it, and then I struggled for a long time to find the right set of words to kind of that weren't too overwrought, but that actually had enough kind of gravitas in it to express what I really felt. But it's difficult, and it's not the sort of thing you think about. What will I do when this happens? You never really, you shouldn't really think about it, because otherwise your response wouldn't be honest. And but it was a shock. I wasn't expecting him to die, and it was a real, much more of a shock than I thought it would be, actually. More of a shock than my mum and dad dying, funny enough. Not funny enough, because he was just closer to me in many ways and in age. So I wanted to sort of do it justice. I wanted to create a song that I thought he would like.
Yeah. But
it helped me singing that song through the touring period, through 2022 and 2023. I kind of came to terms with it every night, and Simon's brother died as well. One of his older brothers died. So people throw the word cathartic around a lot and meaninglessly, but it was, particularly in the initial phases, it was really good. And I say that it was really good. It made me feel better about things, and also connected with a lot of people, because our generation who've grown up with us are experiencing the same things. Yeah. People are experiencing it all the time, it's silly really to for me to fixate on it, because it's like nothing unusual, but I suppose that's the point. I'm trying to the art, I think, of writing a good song is taking something that's personal and making it universal and like, appealing to people. Sometimes it's trite, and I suppose the art of it is to push through that. So my initial versions of that song were really just awful, but too raw and just too kind of and too woe is me, I suppose. And that's always the problem I think you have with expressing grief creatively, is that the reality of it is that that person has died, and you're left behind, and you're but everything's kind of centered around you, and yet it's that person that's died. And it was, when you see it happening to other people, again, it's one of those things you think, oh, come on, you're still here. And there's always that get hold of yourself kind of thing. But when you're in the midst of it and it's happening to you, it's very difficult to see that light. You're just like, it's a crushing kind of sense, and it's essentially to do with your own mortality. I mean, obviously, it's like if your brother dies, it's like it's very close to home. But it's also it's something's been torn away from you. Something's been torn out of your life, and it's however much you think about it, the reality of death is a difficult thing to cope with. Being with someone when they die is a really it's a difficult experience, and probably not. I struggled with the idea of it being something that I should write a song about, if I'm honest.
But that was your natural response, right?
The music was,
yeah,
but the words were just an outpouring of just because I just do that anyway, because it's easier than it's either that or I walk outside and shout. But yeah, I just I struggled for a while to accept that I should turn it into a song. I know of other people that have expressed these reservations as well about writing about things which are there's a trade-off between you memorialising someone or something and accepting what's happened and and dealing with it, I suppose, in some way, and trivialising it. And it's actually quite difficult to, it's just suddenly it's like there, it's just a song, it just turns into a song. But going out on stage and singing it every night, it was very much like it was the first time I was singing it. And so I kept that part of, I treated it on stage as something very different to the rest of the show.
Quite separate in a way.
And the band always felt that as well. Everyone was like, the mood of the band is often quite, on stage, like things go on and it's like you look at each other and stuff goes on and it's not playful exactly, but there's an undercurrent sometimes of, things that you've seen or what's something that's just happened and no one else is noticing. The mood would change for that song.
Right.
It would become very, very serious, very somber, whatever else was going on. Just for that sort of 6 or 7 minutes, it would be a very sort of somber, dramatic kind of.
Do you think everyone in the band's listening to the words as well and sort of like focusing on, how to make sure that, because, the words are so open and, so beautiful. Not in trepidation. Just but kind of just making sure that it, just comes across, for you.
Yeah, everyone listens to me on stage apart from Simon.
Of course.
But yeah, the band responds to me. But I sing in rehearsals. Do that. I'll say to them, look, this is the bit where you got, so you don't have to listen to every, verse 2. But honestly, when I get to I'm saying this. I'm thinking about Friday when we did Friday I'm in Love at Troxy and I went horribly wrong. But it's I thought it was so close that I just relaxed ever so slightly and it all went.
Everyone loves that though, don't they? When something goes a bit wrong, everyone in the audience.
But that was a good example of so half the band followed, watching the stream. It's really interesting because half the band follows what I'm singing, and the other half of the band just carry on playing the song, thinking, "Fucking idiot, he's gone wrong," So if you watch very carefully, you can see who's listening to me and who isn't. But yeah, ultimately I prevail because I'm just thinking you can't really stop singing. I've reached the middle 8. You have to catch up. So the others know that the response, the emotional response that you get with a song. A lot of it. Instrumental music creates an emotional response, a very strong emotional response. In fact, my preferred music is instrumental music. But I also know that for whatever reason, when I sing, people connect with it, and it's one of those things. I have no idea why, and I don't think any singer does. Lots of people sing. Most people can sing. Not many people want to get up in front of people and sing. I didn't ever want to get up in front of people and sing. I was horrified when I ended up as the singer. I honestly, it's like at school, I never did anything on stage. I was always doing wardrobe stuff. The last thing in the world I wanted was to get on stage. And even when we did our first shows, I sang one song at our first show, just to see what it felt like. And I sang the wrong song. And I played, we were doing covers, I played and sang Suffragette City and everyone else was doing Foxy Lady. And I was so drunk, I didn't even know. It's I thought that was good. And it was you played the wrong song. I never felt like I was cut out to be a singer, and I kind of just grew into it because I fell out with everyone else that sort of occupied that position until I became the de facto singer. It's and I was all, that's why the early albums, the early mixes, I'm really low down in the mix, almost, because I was unsure about what I was doing and I didn't have the right kind of mental, I didn't have the big enough ego, actually, looking back, to be a singer. It's because you do have to think oh, you walk out on stage and I've kind of developed it, I've grown into it, but there's always a part of me which is wonders, when I'm walking up onto a stage, really? I still honestly think that. What am I doing? So it's not a question of being shy. I've never been shy, but I've never been extrovert, and to be a singer there has to be a part of you which really wants, craves attention, and it's lovely when it works. But when I started singing, I didn't think that anyone would like what I sounded like. I didn't. And so I thought, well, no one else is going to. And so I thought, this is going to be a really short career until we find someone who can sing. So I sang the first album. And then discovered that people liked what I was doing, and as it develops and people becoming, they feel like they start to know you, and if you're writing relatable words, and people feel like you're singing with honesty, and then you become part of their lives, and ultimately, your voice actually resonates with people in a way that another instrument doesn't. So the band knows that. They know that if I'm singing well to an audience, it's an extra thing, It's like, so the instrumental build up in the songs, it's not like you're waiting for me to start singing, but the singing bit comes and it's adding to what we've already created. So it's like, so they you know, so that they listen, but some listen more than others.
I mean, everyone has been saying, you know, that your voice has never sounded better.
I have no idea how this is possible. It's just genes. I mean, my dad was singing till he was into his 90s.
But it's not, isn't it? Because like lots of singers, you know, lose their voice quite early on, and some. I mean,
I'm just getting asked, like, what do you do to keep your voice in such good nick and stuff? And I said, like, I have pretty much done everything I can to have killed myself in the last 50 years. So, like, keeping my voice in good nick has really been low down on my list of priorities. So, I honestly, it's just genetics. It's just, it's as simple as that. I mean, I don't do anything. I mean, I try. I mean, I don't live the same life as I now as I did when I was 20 years ago. But I never worried about not being able to sing. I've never had to drop a song in key and things like that. But at some point I will. Yeah. I mean, it's not,
that's okay.
It's not something mystical. It is gonna happen. But I'm just lucky, I suppose, that it's I gave up smoking quite a long time ago. Yeah. I think that's probably the reason why. I think that's what, I mean, I was going to say it's what kills you. I mean, it does, but it also kills your voice. But,
yeah.
So clean living and religion.
Well, of course. Of course. All I Ever Am?
All I Ever Am. It, to me, as well, but lyrically, it's one slightly different to the rest of the songs. I can never say goodbye was difficult because I wanted it to be, I wanted it to have a certain tone, and I found it really, really difficult to get the right tone that I was going to sing, and for it to be honest and for it to be plaintive enough to come across as being real. And All I Ever Am was such a contrived subject in a way, and so kind of like up its own arse that I was worried that I was writing a song about something which was, on the one hand, so patently obvious, and the other hand, like something that you shouldn't even really be bothered thinking about. And yet, like reams and reams of books have been written about the subject of the persistence of consciousness and so forth. And in a period of my life, I was really intrigued by it, by how we are like the sum of who we were, kind of thing, and all that sort of stuff. And whether we're aware of it, or whether there is a persistence of consciousness, or whether am I the same person, or not just in a literal sense, not in a physical sense, but like emotionally and mentally. I think, well, of course not, because you change, but then it leads you to, it's like, how much do you change? Like your formative part of your life is essentially, when you're like 3 years old to kind of, a certain, depending on who you believe, like sort of 3 till 7, but I think it goes further on. And I really think, right the way through until you're in your like early 20s, you're not really you. I don't think you don't really become. And yet there is when you look back, there is a certain part of your life, certain parts of your life which feel much more you than anything that follows. It's a strange. It was that really that it doesn't bother me. I don't sort of wander around agonising over it, but from time to time I think, like, I do something or I say something, I think that wasn't me, and everyone does it. It's like that. And people will say to you, that doesn't sound like you, and you think, like, what does that mean? How do you mean it doesn't sound like me? And it's like, and it's also, I suppose there's an element to it as well, which is because of what I do, because I do feel like I present myself in there's a public face to me, which is kind of odd. Most people don't do that. They don't have a performing side to them. They don't, certainly don't, wear makeup, go on stage and sing.
It makes me think of your videos now, though, and stuff like, getting into, in the 80s, getting into like characters.
Yeah.
Because part of it is you want to mess around because you don't take it as seriously as maybe others do, or something like that. Or
there's also a part of it where when people say, like, why do you wear makeup? And I say, well, because when I put my makeup on, I still do. I feel like I'm about to do something which is like not normal, which is like not necessarily abnormal, but if there was another word for not normal, out of the ordinary, and not really part of who I am. And so it's like but it's like thousands of years old. You go out on a stage and you try to, like, you're enhancing your features, or you're creating some kind of mask, or you're doing, it's something. It's theatrical. It's a performance, and it's that side of it as well, which that feeds into the song, like All I Ever Am, because it's like I say about the empty stage and stuff. it is a much bigger part of my life than I realised it was.
Right.
Performing is actually become something which is integral to who I am as an older man. And it's odd because I didn't even really think about it. It just sort of happened, and I'm thinking like, when did this happen? So it's that kind of self-reflection, but again, like I said, there's a danger of it becoming like it's solipsistic. It's like like here I am like worrying about it. It's like the world's on fire. It almost doesn't matter, and yet it kind of does, because it informs everything you do, everything you say, everything all your actions are informed by like what your sense of right and wrong, and it's really all tied in with that sense of identity. And so it's and I thought it would be interesting just to see if I could write a song about it without sounding sort of kind of, because I don't really know that I reach a conclusion in it at all. I have no idea really. It was almost I had even when I was writing it, I had to keep rereading it because I've got like double negatives in it. That sort of I was thinking, this doesn't make any sense. And I'm still not sure if it does. So yeah, it was an interesting thing to write about. And I thought I just needed a couple of songs. I'm wary of when I do this, though, because I've done it before and write songs about subjects that interest me, and they often turn out they're so. I think that's really good, and it's like very well constructed and so forth, blah blah blah. But it doesn't engage with people,
right.
And the songs very quickly drop out of a set list, and people they're no one's favourite songs. And I thought I don't really want that song, on the album. But again, I managed to get it to a point where it kind of sets you up for the end song, because it's like me struggling with who I am, and which is essentially what end song is all about. So end song is a kind of an emotional response to the feeling of growing old. All I ever am is an emotional response to the idea of being young. It's kind of like the flip side of it. So
I felt with end song, what happened to that boy. It was thinking about three imaginary boys. Boys don't cry. I mean, it's that, right?
Yeah, and it's weird playing, like we finished the show with Boys Don't Cry. I mean, it's almost become like, we sort of do it. And I still think when I'm singing it, I still think that's me here, going back to it. I can still feel myself in that song. It's like, so it's almost like, I mean, not just music, but art in general, like it has that power to kind of pull you out of yourself and to take you into other places. And when you're actually singing and you feel that happening, it's like just on a really selfish level, it's a great feeling, because I think I'm getting away with this. But End Song is really because we recorded in 2019. It was the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, and which I was obsessed with as a kid. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a footballer, but then I wanted to be. If I couldn't do that, I wanted to be an astronaut. I thought it was kind of like, well, if I fail at football, I'll be an astronaut, because that's the way it looked like the world was going. How wrong was I? But I remember like standing outside with all the family, like, looking at my dad saying, "Yeah, they'll be walking on the moon," and I can remember my feeling of utter disbelief, thinking like that. It's not, and being left alone in the garden, looking at it, thinking like, no, a very early conspiracist, and seeing it on the telly, seeing all that, like the grainy black and white images and stuff, and it's like it was a really. It represented so much, that the moon landing. It was like an incredible event. And the sense of the sort of optimism about everything, the possibilities were immense. I used to look up at the sky and think, I'm going to go to the moon. I've often written that line in different forms, and it represented the desire to just like do whatever you wanted, kind of like, follow your dreams.
Yeah.
But it was real, it was a real possibility that I was going to grow up and be an astronaut. It wasn't just like a pipe dream. I thought, my daddy says, well, you have to do science, and it was a dead serious kind of like, but it didn't work out. Although I have been to the moon several times.
Yeah, me too.
It's when we were recording 2019, the album, the working title was Live from the Moon, and we recreated 1969 in the studio. So there was no modern technology allowed in the studio, and we had all 1969 stuff, magazines and newspapers and toys and board games and Apollo board game, fantastic game. Particularly with a few pints of Welsh beer in.
Yeah.
So, how have we not played this more in the last 50 years? So yeah, it was for a month we just created that sort of vibe of which is why it was Songs of a Lost World. Because when I left the studio, I felt like I realised that world, the world that we'd created in Rockfield no longer existed, and the world that actually I was celebrating no longer existed. And it was again the persistence of the world itself. You're thinking like everything's the same, but it isn't. It's just like it's a strange feeling. I mean, because our timescales are so tiny, because I've always ever since the moon landing, I've had a telescope, and so I'm kind of I love nothing more than just like spending a few hours just staring up into space. It does give you a sense of perspective, and the timescales that we work to and that everyone was obsessed by become. I mean, I don't own a lot of technology for that reason, because I find it really, really irritating, because it drags me back into a world that I don't really want to be in. So I've never owned a smartphone, for example, because I can't really be bothered with it. I thought I lived for quite a long time without a smartphone, so I don't really see why I need one. And I don't have an assistant who has one either before it's unnecessary, and it kind of like I feel like it's a step too far for me just personally, and I like to so in some ways I've sort of stopped at a certain point. I've chosen to stop at a certain point, and I've kind of disengaged with the modern world to a degree. Although I am Luddite actually in the truest sense, because I despair at the blindness of walking into an AI world. It's just like it drives me crazy. But I've always been kept abreast of technology, but I've never really been seduced by it. So I understand how it all works, but to me, it isn't. When people talk about sexy tech, God, there's nothing worse. I think it's like, yeah. So I suppose it's. That's informed a lot of what we've done over the years as well, and particularly with this album, I think it's come to like a point where I've actually wanted the band to create something which celebrates a world which sadly is no longer there, but without becoming too sort of, like I said earlier, too maudlin about it and too morose. But I'm glad that I think I've experienced a better world than the youngsters that I know. Right. I think it was a lot easier and a lot brighter, and just generally, but then you just sound like your dad. It was better.
Well, there is that.
My dad never said that, because he went through a world war, so he never used that line on me, because he had to go away and fight for 5 years. So the world he grew up in wasn't the best of all possible worlds. So he used to say to me, "You're living in the best of all possible worlds." So, and I believed him, and I think he was probably right.
Thanks, Robert. That was fantastic.
Thank you. God, worn out now.
Yeah.
Normally do this over a few pints.